My name is Katie, and I am 8 years old. My teacher, Miss Hargison, told me to write about my hero. My hero is my mummy. I live with my mummy in a little white house in the middle of a street. Amber's mom called our house a ghetto once. And when I asked Daddy what that means, he told me it meant a scary, dirty area. I think our house is pretty, even if it is in a ghetto. It has a bathroom, a kitchen, a living room, my parents' room, and even a room for me. My mummy and I live alone most of the time. Mummy says Daddy works far away, so he can only stay a day or two, and during the holidays. Sometimes I hear Mummy crying in her room when I'm supposed to be asleep. I think Mummy is sad Daddy is gone a lot, but she never cries in front of me. I hug Mummy every day to make her happy. My mummy is really pretty. She has long black hair that is always shiny and never curly like my hair or Daddy's. She has skin like Snow White, and Daddy says she came from a storybook too. Mummy hits him in the arm when he says that, but I don't know why. She has really pretty eyes that aren't like any other mommies. They are kitty eyes. Mummy wears sunglasses when we are out, so no one sees them, but I don't know why. I think other girls' mommies would be mad that they don't have such pretty eyes. But her eyes are also scary when she gets mad. My mummy is my hero because she is like a superhero from a comic book. The people next door were always weirdos who would stare at me when I go to play outside or in our yard. They were always mean. They were always men and never had any girls around. Mummy told me I was to never go near the house next door or the man, and she would always get a mean face around them. I never told Mummy, but one day one of the men gave me a piece of chocolate, and told me he had more in his house. I told him my mummy didn't want me going near him, and he got mad, so I ran away. One night, I was in bed when I heard a loud noise. It scared me, so I hid under my covers with my stuffed pony, Wiggles. He has a horn that glows and keeps the monsters away. I heard Mummy shouting at someone to get out, and I heard a man call her a bad word. Mummy kept yelling, and suddenly she stopped. And all I heard were the men calling out for me. I stayed under my covers till someone took them off. It was the man next door, only they were wearing black masks and shirts and pants. They told me they were going to take me to a place with other little girls to play with, but I hid under my bed before they could get me. I crawled in the corner and hugged Wiggles while the men tried to get me. I was really scared. One of the men finally pulled my bed away and tried to grab me. But before he could, my mummy came in. She had a lot of dark red stuff on her forehead and looked really mad. One time I broke one of her favorite cups, and she got really mad. But when she saw the men, she looked even madder than that. I hid in the corner of the room with Wiggles, and one of the men swung a bat at Mummy. She grabbed it and snapped it in half. Then she made a loud sound, like a car that stops too fast and leaves the black marks on the road. The men covered their ears and backed up, but I didn't. I liked the sound. Then Mummy started to look different. Her skin got really gray and dry looking, and her nails got really long and sharp looking, like her big cooking knives. Her mouth was open as she was screaming, and I saw her teeth go backwards and get replaced by pointy little spikes. I remember finding a rusty nail on the ground once, and her teeth looked just like that. But I know you can't have nails for teeth. Her feet got really long, and her legs bent like doggy legs. But it was weird looking because her toes went away too. Two big black pointy things came out of her back and wrapped around the men, like when I got tangled in my jump rope. The men started crying and saying they were sorry, but Mummy was still really mad. I think one of them got so scared that they peed their pants. Ew. Mummy made a sound like a lion and threw him into the wall. He fell over and laid there. The other man tried to get Mummy to let him go, but instead she grabbed his face and stuck her fingers in his eyes. He started screaming a lot, and the dark red stuff started coming out of his eyes. Then Mummy put her other hand in his mouth and started pulling. It was like when we made pizzas once. His head started to stretch and his skin started to rip apart like a piece of paper. It made a weird sound, like wet silly putty getting pulled apart. He kept screaming higher and higher, till finally Mummy pulled the top of his head off, along with the bottom of his mouth. Mummy threw the parts away and shoved her arm down the area where his mouth was supposed to be, and she pulled out a weird tube connected to a big bag-looking thing. Mummy threw the parts away and shoved her arm down the area where his mouth was supposed to be, and she pulled out a weird-looking tube connected to a big bag-looking thing. It was wet and smelt really bad. Mummy ripped it open and threw it at the other man who was sleeping after she threw him. Some juices came out of the bag, and when it hit the man, he started screaming. I think it was the medicine Mummy puts on my boo-boos, and it stings a lot. The man got up and tried to run at my window, but Mummy jumped at him like a kitty jumping a mouse. She even put her nails in him like a kitty would. I heard the wet ripping sound again, but this time it also sounded like the time I ripped my pink sweater Daddy bought for me for Christmas. The man started yelling and trying to grab at me, but I backed up and watched as Mummy took off his back. I think she was trying to change, to find the off switch, like on my talking dolls. The man tried to hit Mummy, but she was standing on his shoulder and butt. They looked really funny. My Mummy suddenly bent down really fast and put her mouth on a weird white thing in the man's back. It was really long, and when she pulled it out, one end had a weird rowdy thing with 2 holes. I think it was his battery, but I've never seen a battery like that in my dolls. Mummy spit out the battery and stepped on the man's head. I heard a loud crunch, like when I eat my cereal, and the dark stuff got all over my floor and Mummy's foot. When Mummy lifted her foot, his head looked like a weird pancake or one of the sleeping animals I see on the busy roads. They're always flatter than normal animals. Mummy picked me up and hugged me tight and made sure I didn't have any boo-boos. I kissed Mummy's nose and told her she was a superhero. That made Mummy smile. She put me in her room and went to the mirror with the silly letters on it. She said something I didn't understand, and the mirror started to glow really bright. It got really hot, and I think I heard some people yelling. They sounded really sad. Daddy came out of the mirror, and Mummy told him what happened. He looked really worried and made sure I didn't have any boo-boos. He was really warm, and his hairy hand smelled funny. I told him I was really scared, and I started to cry. He wiped away my tears with his long black nails and kissed me all better. My daddy's kisses feel weird because of his doggy nose. Mummy says Daddy has the head of a fox, but his nose still looks like a doggy's. When Mummy told him she knew there were more men in the house, Daddy got really mad, and his horn started to glow like Christmas tree lights. Daddy has curly horns, just like his hair. My daddy ran out of the room, and his hard, horsey feet made a lot of noise. I heard a lot of yelling, and Mummy held me tight, telling me Daddy was getting rid of the bad men. Mummy became pretty again and sang to me until the yelling stopped. Daddy came back covered in the dark stuff and some gray stuff, and told Mummy that he would clean up the mess the men made. Daddy and Mummy cleaned up while I got to watch cartoons. Now I sleep with Mummy and Daddy and Wiggles. My room is boarded up and smells funny. Mummy tells me I can't go in there anymore. I think it's where she keeps her super-powered juice. It looks like the dark stuff that came out of the men. This is why my mummy is The rest of this document is burnt away. This document was found along the remains of a residential home in an urban area. Neighbors complained about a strange smell coming from the house to the left of the house in question. Upon investigation, police found the remains of 23 registered sex offenders, along with child pornography and evidence of an underground sex trafficking ring. The remains appear to have been torn apart in such a wild and violent manner that an animal was suspected as the cause. Papers discovered within the home of the deceased indicated the group had made plans to kidnap the daughter of a Mr. and Mrs. The home of Mr. and Mrs. was the home that this document was found in, along with the burnt bodies of 2 men. No trace of Katie or her parents were found among the remains.